Welcome back to the Untethering Shame podcast. I'm your host, Kyira Wackett. Shame has a way of seeping into every corner of our lives, into our relationships, our parenting, our bodies, our identities. And too often we're taught to fix it, silence it, or pretend it isn't there. But what if shame isn't something to get rid of? What if it's a messenger, an invitation to look inward with curiosity and compassion? In today's episode, I sit down with David Bedrick, author, process worker, and founder of the Unshaming Way, to talk about just that. With more than 3 decades of experience guiding individuals and healers through the deep terrain of emotional work, David brings a unique lens to the conversation, one that invites us to embrace the parts of ourselves we've been taught to reject. Together, we explore how shame shows up in the aftermath of COVID, in addiction, codependency, in the inner critic that keeps us small. We talk about the ways shame distorts our sense of power, pathologizes our feelings, and keeps us from owning what we need. And most importantly, we talk about what it means to unshame, to follow the signals of our emotional and physical pain with intention, to listen instead of judge, and to remember that healing isn't about perfection, it's about presence. So let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast, David. I have been, glitzing. Is that even a word? I've just had this vibrational energy all day, just being super pumped about our conversation.
It's good to be here.
So I love to start every episode just doing a one-word check-in, just getting a feel for where we're at, kind of you and I getting on the same page. And so if you were to describe how you're feeling right now with one word, what would it be?
COVID. That's my one word.
In the back of my mind as I'm talking, I'm like, I'm trying to guess what he's going to say. My initial reaction was just sick, exhausted. But yeah, you're down with it. Is this your first time having COVID?
I had it maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
I thought when I was dreaming about it yesterday, that's how I do things. I dream about things. I was imagining that someone had me in a headlock, because my head is got a lot of pressure from sinus stuff. And I remembered there's this great comic, Louis Anderson, and he told the story that when he was a kid, there was a school bully, and the school bully would grab him, get him in a headlock, and his arm wrapped around his head, and he would say, "Gotcha in a headlock. What are you going to do about it?" And Louis Anderson would say, "Nothing," because he was like a much smaller kid. And the guy would say, "All right, then," and let him go. Like, if you want to fight me, I'm going to hurt you, right? So I think that's where I'm at. I think COVID has me in a headlock, and it's saying, "What are you going to do about it?" I'm saying, "Nothing." I'm like, I can't change that totally. I do what I can to be healthy. It says surrender, give in, and it's going to take its course. So.
Yeah, I definitely had an experience with that. I'm sort of on the opposite end where myself and my daughter both were sick for about 6 weeks of middle of the night, 2 to 3 hours a night of coughing fits. Nothing was stopping it. I am unable to sort of process my own feelings, and I don't feel good and she doesn't feel good. And you start to lose your capacity for reason in the middle of the night. So then I'm kind of a dick to her. So then I'm in a state of shame on top of not getting sleep. And so we were just in a not great pattern. And I think surrender was definitely the word I had to embrace of I'm just not going to get things done, and I'm not going to feel 100%. And I'm going to need to take days off from doing things that I wanted to do or I thought I needed to do. And that's okay. And now coming out of this, and we're almost a full week into sleeping through the night, both of us, again, without coughing fits. It's
good to hear.
There's a certain element of, it's gratitude, but it's also this idea of how I want to remember. I think this is sort of the human condition. I want to remember in the moments of suffering that things are temporary. And I have a really hard time with that, where I don't start to go into this sort of hyper-vigilant panic, the world is ending state. And so just a state of gratitude, but also trying to reframe this experience with a little bit more balance and understanding life is a series of changes, transitions, ebbs and flows. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting month and a half, and all that happening in the midst of the end of the year and the election and all these things that were going on. And it was just sort of this like, I think we all felt a vibration that was really high, regardless of where you stand, what you believe, what you were doing. It just was a high vibration time in terms of like stress and angst in the world for
It
sure.
really is. It makes me want to talk about chronic illness, but I'm not sure if that's the best time for that.
I mean, that might be episode 2 when you come
Okay.
on, and we're going to have
Okay.
that one too, because I think there's so much we could do with that.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I'm super excited about is when I made the pivot and the shift to really focus on shame, outside of people knowing Brene Brown, there wasn't a lot of other people that clients of mine, even peers in the therapy field, were relating to or aware of or understanding that it wasn't just her talking about shame and what it was and what healing can look like. And so I'm up here, I'm talking about it all the time, but today I kind of get to just turn to you as the expert voice to talk more about shame and your years of not only experiencing and experiential learning and processing, but also all of your knowledge and the application. And so just for everybody listening, I want them to be able to hear from you how you really conceptualize and talk about shame and why it's such a crucial focal point for you in the work that you do.
Wow. Shame. Some people believe that shame is this most awful, humiliating kind of feeling, right? I was peeing or shitting in public. People dream of that, right? Or something. You saw me naked and I don't want you to see me naked. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I hide my body from you looking at me and seeing whatever you're seeing? My penis or my fat or whatever I should hide. So people have that sense. And most people who talk about shame describe events like that. And it's incredibly misleading because most shame is invisible to people. It's a silent killer. Very rarely are people having a story like that. Most of the time, people are just believing the shamed view about themselves and going to try to get themselves better, improve themselves. They're not thinking, I'm full of shame. They're thinking, I want to lose my body fat. I want to get better. I want to not be depressed. I want to not get angry. I want to not eat ice cream so much. And most people are doing that. They're not thinking, I'm full of shame. But the way they approach that, as if something's wrong with me that needs to be fixed, as opposed to there's an intelligence native to me and my nature that does things, that experiences feelings, and that intelligence needs to be known. I call that unfolded, so that it's known, as if it's infolded like a flower and needs to flower.
Yeah, I think about that a lot because you're right, those sort of big ticket examples of major embarrassment definitely get brought up a lot. And I think for me, the way I've often thought about shame is this development of a sense of self that's trying to protect you from rejection, from not belonging, from whatever it is. And it does really put us in a position of sort of inappropriately ascribing control and responsibility. So we get very confused. So even when you were saying, depression or weight loss or all these things, for many people, they're trying to control things that are outside of their control and denying realities of what their context of their life might be or who they are as people. Because my understanding from just the way you've talked a lot about it is shame is really our relationship with that inner critic and how much we are believing it. We're not consciously going, yeah, I'm going to fix this. The problem is me. It is just sort of a subconscious acceptance of or a normalization of this idea that I am the broken one. I'm fucked up. I'm the problem. So any data, any messaging that comes in from my inner self or the outside world that confirms that, I just respond to it. I don't even question it.
I'm thinking of these two stories. A man came to me and he had a story that I later learned. And the story was that he was abused by a father. And then in his family system, they said to him, why are you so dramatic? What's wrong with you? Why are you filled with all these difficult feelings? Right. And I'm thinking of a woman who was also abused, in this case by a clergy. And they said to her, you need to learn to forgive. Now, those two people come to me to get therapeutic help. They don't say, David, let me tell you about the violence of my home or the violence of my clergy. The man comes and says, I'm so dramatic. Can you help me? And I make up things. I'm not very self-doubting. Where did the story go? And the woman says, can you help me? I'm so angry and unforgiving. Can you help me accept things and be more forgiving? I can cry just saying that. So what happened to the story? What happened to the intelligence of her reactions, her upset? What happens to the dramatic expression of that man that belonged to a story, that belonged to a story? Well, those went away and they became what I call pathologized. That means they're illnesses to get rid of. They're not indications of a story. They're not powers that live in me. They're not voices and of intelligence that I need to deal with a world that's sometimes violent. There's nothing good about those things. The story is gone. My subjective experience is gone. Treating me like a person who has a story, who reacts to that story intelligently, organically, that's gone. And all I have left is a symptom to make go away. I'm working with people for 35 years. Most of what people come to me with is that latter. Help me make this go away. And there's no story, there's no intelligence, there's no, why is this happening? What are you made of? There's no inquiry. It's all gone. And we're in an allopathic medical model. I have a symptom, make it go away, then I'm healthy, right?
Well, and I feel like I had a flashback when you were talking about the dramatic piece, because I've talked about this on here before, but one of the really painful realities that I had to deal with was a lot of what you just described, of a family system where I had a lot of early childhood trauma, single mother, relapsed back into crack cocaine use. She was in and out of prison and treatment centers, and I was moved around to different family homes. And I was often labeled, like my grandma even gave me a card for my birthday that on the front said drama queen. And it was one of these weird little cartoons. I can't remember where it came from, but it's like, it was a very familiar cartoon at the time. And then on the inside, it's like most people or some people do this, this, and this. And like, you just choose to whine, whine, whine. And at the end, it's happy birthday, love grandma. And I'm like, at the time, I had adopted that. Like, I am a dramatic person. I am this. So as you're saying this with these examples, I'm sort of reminded of how that pathologizing happened, but I wasn't even aware that was a pathologizing until 20 years into my healing, and somebody finally having a conversation with me about, honestly, internal family systems modeling, and the response to me of, how could you not have developed a reaction like that? How could you not have been in a state of hypervigilance when your life was always changing? How could you not have created opportunities to experiment to see what it would take for people to leave you when you assumed everybody would leave? Because that's what the data said. And it's a really interesting thing. And the second thing that came up to me then is the way that I think so many, you and me in our own healing, but so many of the clients that we see, it is this idea that then I am the problem. And then that's that weird sense of responsibility, but also control. So I can fix it. And I think we then attach this idea, if I could fix it, I'll feel better. Because the idea of sometimes digging in is realizing we can't fix what's happened to us. And a lot of that deep healing is so painful. And for many of us, it isn't just that we've been pathologized. It's we don't even have the capacity to know what our emotions are and how to feel them because they've been stuffed away so long. We're too afraid of that. I'd rather be the problem because that at least feels tangible. What we're asking them to do feels too scary.
This is the importance of what people are now calling somatic experience, a la Peter Levine, or body experience or body intelligence, of accessing the body. Because if you want to feel something, you have to, in my view, most people's view, go into the body. Feelings live in the body. That's where they are. So if you want to feel something, you have to take a moment and see what's happening in this body thing. And very few people have experience like that because we're diagnosed very quickly. Oh, you're depressed. Oh, really? You're down, or you can't sleep. And no one's saying, what's the depression like in your body? Or I'm angry. Oh, really? You're angry? Oh, yeah, that's not so good. Does it hurt you? Is that scary? You should learn to manage that. Or I'm an addict and I love to put cocaine into my arm. Oh, really? And all those three examples and many others, it's very rare that a person is asked, what's it like when you're depressed? What's it when
Mm.
you put that needle in your arm? I'm not suggesting you should do it. You could die of an overdose. I get it. I'm not saying it's okay, go ahead and do that.
Right.
I'm saying, I want to know what you're doing, and I don't know yet. And what you're doing is creating an experience.
Mm.
And that experience lives in one of many places, but the easiest access place and the most dominant place is the body. So I
Yeah.
want to know. I once worked with a guy who was doing Ritalin and cocaine. He was putting that in his arm. And he said, I'm doing this because I'm so depressed and life is no good and I don't know what else to do. So this is what is, it's a sign of my depression. And then I said to him, what's it like when you put that needle in your arm? I went slower. I'm not trying to be cavalier about that because he overdosed and could have died. And as soon as I told him that, his voice changed to, well, oh my gosh, it's so intense. And all of a sudden, he's enlivened and intense and talking about music and how much he loves music and all these things which he doesn't experience in his normal life. I'm not saying, again, got to be clear about that. I'm not naive. I'm not thinking, oh, good, so use cocaine and Ritalin to get that. But I am thinking he's looking for something. He's looking for music and a passion and an intensity that lives in him.
Mm-hmm.
He needed to get in touch with that. I needed to help him do that. If I don't help him do that, the odds of any change effort are very rarely sustainable. Addictions almost are never sustainable. 70+%
Mm-hmm.
of the people don't sustain getting off of a drug of any kind, or food for that matter.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
people say, oh, it's the chemical thing. Even food.
No.
Almost nobody changes that habit for more than a short period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
And recognizing, and as someone that's in recovery from an eating disorder, recognizing that when you're only breaking the behavior pattern without doing that deeper work of connecting to the body and figuring out not why was I doing this to shame myself and to layer shame on shame, but what was what was I trying to achieve? What was I trying to either, I think what you're describing, either access, or where was I trying to go? Where was I trying to go away from? Where was I trying to go to? When I didn't get clear about that, it hopped to other things. So then it wasn't just food in my body, it was codependence and enmeshment in relationships. It was an addiction to success and achieving the next thing, and at a complete deficit to my own health and well-being. And so realizing that it's these patterns of functioning. And I'm curious because as we're talking about this, I often come to the point where I believe I have yet to meet a person who doesn't experience shame. But I'm curious if in your mind, is shame a ubiquitous experience, or is it on a spectrum? What does that look like? And how do people know if they do have it in your mind?
That's a good way to say it. It's a ubiquitous experience. It's our main paradigm. That means when something bugs me, I don't sleep enough at night. And I think, what's wrong? What should I do about that? That's not a bad idea. Maybe
Right.
I could exercise more or take a supplement or get acupuncture or whatever, all the different things I've tried, right? It's not a
Right.
bad thing to do. And nobody's saying, what's it like when you're up in the night?
Mm,
What are you doing in that time? What's it like in your body? Are you scared? Is it past trauma? Are you enjoying the fact that you have nothing else to do and no one's bugging you so you can finally read the poetry or watch the video you wanted to watch? Do you love the moon? Does it keep you awake because you're so moved by that particular light into aspects of yourself that don't happen in the day? How would I know that if I only treat myself as a person who needs to get more sleep? I wouldn't know. The question's not asked. And I want to say something about eating disorders, which is, I don't know anything about your process about that. But when people talk about eating disorders, they usually either talk about binging and purging
hmm
or not eating, anorexia and bulimia. But I don't
hmm
love titles, but I know what they mean, right?
Right.
And I want to say something about the eating and purging, not because that's the most important topic for the moment, but it's very important spot to clarify what shame is and what unshaming is. Because most people who eat and purge, vomit, don't do that in public. They do it in private.
Correct.
They don't want anybody to know. Of course they don't.
Right.
I understand, right? But here's the thing. I've worked with lots of people. In fact, I'm going to be a main part of a documentary in Slovakia. I can't remember when it's next May they're filming. Person, this is maybe gross to people, but don't make it gross. Make it animal. Make it like the way creatures do things, as opposed to, oh, that's sick. Get that out of your mind. That's a sick person. That's weird. When a person eats and purges, what is literally happening? If we're studying it from what I call unshaming, I'm just looking at the experience. A person is doing something, putting food down their mouth, and usually a lot in a short period of time, and then throwing up. The eating leads to throwing up. That's what it does. I'm not saying the person is thinking, I'll eat a lot so I can throw up, but that's what's happening. And if I ask a person, what's it like to throw up? Feel it. Don't have to throw up in front of me. Well, you could, but let's make it easier than that. Feel what the throwing up is like. Feel it in the body, the nausea. Everyone can get in touch with that a little bit from memory. Oh, yeah. Feel it, express it. Ugh. Go ahead, make sounds like you're throwing up. Blah. And people will make strong, as you can imagine, as everyone can imagine, sounds. Blah, blah. And if I ask people to put words to that, they'll say words that people will find offensive. Fuck, screw you. I'm tired of living in this stupid family. And people will start, quote unquote, throwing up. Now, it's not a literal throwing up. But the reason why I'm saying that is because it's a good example of what we pathologize. Yes, we don't want that person to keep doing that because they can hurt their system, their teeth, their body, they could die. There's acids going through their esophagus. There's serious things that we want to do something about. My view is that there's more impact if you start thinking that person is doing something. They're doing something that leads them to throwing up. Let me help them, quote unquote, throw up. Not literally, bring things out of them. There's a lot of disgust that lives inside you that got stuffed that you're not allowed to bring out, that's been shamed. I'm not allowed to act this way. I have to act nice or pretty or cute or smart or something like that. Can I make sounds, make words? Can I say I'm disgusted with certain things in the world? Can I become an activist? And when I work with people on those things, they find those qualities. And then the unshaming approach says, how can I help them live more as a person who can express that way? About their own story, about what's happening in Palestine, about what's happening in the United States politics, wherever that is, because they have a voice and not everyone wants to hear it. It looks like throwing up. Who wants me to throw up in front of them? Nobody. And nobody wants people to say the things that are gross in a family system or a culture.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I don't think that I've ever had somebody frame it for me in that way. And I think about, my relationship with, and I love that you kind of pointed out that we have these labels and they don't necessarily, they help, but they don't help. And so I was really all over the map before the DSM changed. I had the eating disorder, not otherwise specified diagnosis. And having dipped into these different behaviors and patterns, when you were just talking about that, I thought about, for me, oftentimes my emotional need, like I remember, wow, this is really interesting. So I had the experience in my head when you're talking about throwing up, and I would remember, and I still remember the feeling. For me, it was the immediacy of something feeling lighter and better. And it was that I could go, I felt as though something had gotten better. And in my life, things were so constantly in a state of vigilance and flux. And anytime I would try to share my feelings or needs with another person, particularly in middle school and high school when I was moving around to different family member homes, a lot of fucked up family dynamics, the response was often things like, your emotions are an inconvenience, put on a happy face, no one has time to deal with that, you're dramatic. And so there would be this like, it's stuck. It's like something being stuck inside that you can't get out. And then sometimes I met with therapists and I'd say all the things out loud, that idea of like a verbal vomiting of everything out loud. And I would get no sense of lightness because I still wouldn't feel seen. I wouldn't feel like I was heard. I would feel shut down. And so the throwing up, it's so interesting now because that was maybe 10 years after a lot of these other things happened. I mean, it was fucking great. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm glad I don't do it. But I still remember that sense of feeling seen and immediately feeling better. And that was something I didn't have. And so I'm curious because you brought up the unshaming, and that's really a big thing that you talk about. And what I wrote down as you were talking is that it feels like unshaming is this sense of sort of neutral curiosity and exploration. But say more about this concept and why really the work and I don't even know if you want to say healing shame, working with our shame, why unshaming is really the process we need to be talking about.
Yeah. Shame is an internalized witness that looks at my experience, it looks at my throwing up and thinks, that's really gross, that's terrible. How do I stop from doing that? I'm not sleeping at night. How do I sleep more? I'm depressed. How do I antidepress? I'm angry. I take things out on my wife. I made her feel guilty earlier today. That was so good. How do I stop doing that? Not bad impulses. The agenda is good, but what's missing? So and then shame looks at that and says, what's wrong with you? You screwed up. Something's bad. Let's change that about you. Here's a protocol. Here's a medicine. Here's a list of things to do that will stop you from doing that. Unshaming says inside all those experiences lives something. I call it a seed sometimes, something that could flower, like in the vomiting. Let's believe that vomiting has something to it. The energy of it, the expression of it. Let's believe that the depression has something in it, the expression of it. I'm not wishing people were depressed, but unshaming says, let's do the opposite of shame. I'm going to think you're doing something, and it's an expression of your fundamental intelligence and your nature mixed together. Because people have different natures and different gifts. And if I find that and help you do that, maybe in new ways, in richer ways, that maybe the thing that looks difficult may get easier, but I will become a more whole person. That would be the hopeful idea.
Yeah, I think about that as you're describing shame and sort of it's not inherently bad to look at something and go, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But it's this idea that it gets so deeply rooted to you are broken, you are the problem. It's not just how do we fix this behavior? I mean, I think about it, some of the work I'm still really doing around my shame because it's hopped from thing to thing and it really roots in this belief that I am not enough, a very deep-seated core belief. And often my shame with parenting comes in a lot. And so it's not bad to go, I didn't handle that well. I want to handle that better. It's problematic that I end every night ruminating for several hours and ending with the story, you're a shitty mom. And that sort of being this idea that either I have to fix it and I think this is really where things come into play. And I'm curious how you would connect this to addiction, or I have to hide it. Because sometimes I'll get to the point where it's like, well, clearly I can't fix it. I'm too fucked up and broken. So now not only do I want to escape the feeling for a minute, but I have to make sure that no one else sees it because that is such a threat to me and my sense of connection to the world. And I need that, even if it's fake and performative.
The parent issue is so deep. I've worked with so many parents, and the parents who would come to me or come to you, those are already pretty damn good people. Those are not like the really bad people. Don't come and say, I hurt my child. Please help me do that differently. So we have to say that, right? And that's very important because if a parent says, I've done this and this and this wrong, and it's so painful to me, I can't stand it. Please help me. That person's already very caring about their child. They're also probably giving themselves such a rough time about it that they can't get to know themselves. Now, if I'm a parent and I think I'm doing a shitty job regularly, I have something inside of me that says you screwed up this, you screwed up that, your child did something today, they wouldn't have done it if you raised them right, they never would have done drugs, they never would have hit that kid, if I had done a good job or if I didn't protect them. If I walk around with that view, now when I see my child, the child is a stimulus for me thinking I'm a bad person. Now think about that relationship. If every time I see you, Kyira, what I'm looking at is what an asshole David is, that's going to be very hard for me to relate to you. And it's going to be a very unpleasant relationship because when I'm looking at you and you're a reminder of what a jerk I am. Well, this is not a place to hang out in. And it unrelates. Then the relationship with the child no longer has the richness of, hey, I'm sorry I screwed something up, figuring out how to repair that. It now has, this is the kind of person I am, and that's what I'm thinking about. Now what I deliver to that person is me thinking I'm bad. That's not going to be a good relationship for the child. That's a really painful relationship. for the child. So most parents who would come to someone like me or you need help, one, with an inner critic,
Mm-hmm.
something that's beating them up. Doesn't mean you shouldn't look and be honest with yourself and be responsible. But if you're, like you're saying, if you're up at night regularly beating yourself up, that's not healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second, so that would be the first thing I would deal with. If you're sitting beating yourself up, push back against that inner critic. You don't have to agree with that critic. You can say, yes, I screwed up. I want to do something about that. But if you're being beaten up regularly, if you're thinking I'm a bad parent, you're being beaten up regularly inside.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way out of that. You may just not notice it. And the second thing is, what is it that you did that you think is so bad? And that has to be known. Like, let's say a parent gets to the edge of what they can take and they yell or they smack a child or they do something that they think this is really bad or that happens regularly. I yell and it's too much and it's hurtful to my child. I think it's abusive. Good concern.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out. But if I'm with that person, Kyira, I don't say, how do we manage that? I say, now you're with me. The child's not here. Your child's safe. Can you please show me the energy of that yell? If you smack your child, I would say, can you please take your hand and show me the slap? If the child's not here, I'm not saying you should do it.
Right.
I want to know experientially what you did. So you really can be accountable, but not to make you feel, but I want to know. And if that person kind of goes, well, I'm just mad. I'm like, show me, yell here. It's safe. The child's not here. I'm not thinking you should yell at your child. If you need to take a few minute pause so that you don't take it out on your child, great. But I want to know. And if I had that person yell or show me the slap energy of their hand, people can't see it. I'm making a hand like a slap. And I say, keep doing that. Do that slap energy. Do that yelling. People will find energies in themselves that they need more contact with. They need to be more in touch with. Because if I say I have to be always even and I can never get upset, that means I can never say, stop it. John, no. I'm setting a hard line boundary. I can't have a tone or an energy.
Yep.
Then I split that off. That energy gets shamed. And then it's going to burst out.
Mm-hmm.
That means I need to know it more. Where do I want to use that? Do I need to set more boundaries? Does it belong at work? Does it belong with my partner? Is it that I have an inner critic that's beating me up and I need some of that slapping, angry, tough energy?
Mm-hmm.
People always need that energy somewhere, not to hurt their child or smack their child in their face or various different kinds of violence, but they need that. And my unshaming approach says, let's learn about what that energy is. Get conscious about it. Get really conscious about it. Don't allow it just to erupt one day and escape out of you. Let's get to know it. Let's explore it here until you know it well and say, yeah, I have that energy in me. I have a fierceness in me. This is how I want to use more of that. This is why I don't use it in certain places where I need it. This way, you're making a relationship. Be like if you met a wild animal and you said, what are you going to do with that wild animal that could hurt you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could cage it. That may be necessary for a while. You could kill it. That's not an uncommon thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But another possibility is getting to know it. And then you think, I want to get to know that creature in the wild. Then I can know how to have a relationship. How do I be safe with it? How do I protect myself? How do I connect with the energy of that so I know it inside myself? How do I make it into an ally? Ultimately, that would be the ultimate unshaming. Take that smacking hand and do something with it. Pound the table and say, I need to say no more.
Yeah.
Go to your boss and say, this is untenable. Or tell yourself, I'm not going to be pushed anymore and have to be perfect. Do something with that energy. It belongs somewhere. It's not just an accident that you have it.
One, I think in both of those pieces that you talked about, that getting clear on that inner critic story and even that sort of the power to disagree. And then as you talked about whatever those behaviors, those experiences, those stories that we have, both of those steps or parts of the process really require a sense of empowerment, because the power to disagree with the story that you have feels like the word that comes to mind, and I don't feel like it's the exact right fit, but it's blaring right now, is like entitlement. Like, who do I think I am to disagree with this story that feels so true? And then in that second part of thinking about those behaviors, I mean, it's fucking beaten into us, like, especially as a mom of a young child, and COVID didn't help. She was born 2 weeks before COVID. So, like, our connection was
Mm.
social media. And so a lot of it was, when the gentle parenting model came out. And this isn't just for parents. And so, whatever relationship it is, it's this idea that it is an approachable and completely reasonable, attainable goal to be a gentle parent and to never have an emotion, to never have a big emotional reaction. It's basically a really screwed up way of suppressing ourselves as humans and becoming sort of automatons, like as a robotic parent that's always supposed to be gentle and even keeled. And I think because we've got part number one, which is, well, this story is true. Who are you to disagree? And then part number two that says it's a sustainable and achievable goal for you to be balanced, to be meditative, to never have a big emotional reaction. I'm assuming you see resistance to that because I can feel, even doing this work professionally and 10 plus years into my own shame resilience journey, I still get hot in my body thinking about the sense of self and the empowerment that I'm still working to claim to do the next steps of that work.
Beautiful. I love the way you say that. I love your passion and your intelligence. I have to say that you're
Oh, thank you.
really bright, and it's not just articulate, but you have things to say and make stories and inner insight and outer insight. It's amazing. I
Mm.
forgot where I was going to go. I was just enjoying listening to you and your thoughts. That's what COVID wiped the rest of it out. I blame it on COVID.
That's what we're going to go with. Yeah, that was word number one, right? COVID.
COVID is like dream, David. Don't try to be too focused, but yeah.
But
I noticed my eyes are looking a little bit off, and normally that wouldn't be true. And I think that's part of my COVID experience. There's
yeah.
beautiful mountains out there, and it's like looking at the mountains allows my focus to be a little blurry because my brain feels a little blurry. If I unshame COVID, you see, that would mean, what is my symptom really like? And the symptom right now is mostly, you can probably hear it, I have a stuffy nose.
Yes.
And then it's in my head, is not hurting as much as it has been, but it feels like a foggy, dense energy. And if I let that be there, I'd be like, yeah, phew, everything's going to be okay. That's what comes out of me. If I let that go, I'm not thinking it's good to have viral loads in my system and all that stuff. But
no, but what a beautiful, because I feel like oftentimes, and I don't know if this ever happens to you, but particularly in something like this, where you're being interviewed, you're the interviewer, when you feel like you kind of lose track of something, shame can show up. And it's this, you're fucking up. Why don't you know what we're talking about or where we're going? And you literally just put into practice in this moment, this example of you allowed yourself to just sort of be, and you're feeling a little bit blurry, a little bit kind of like, I don't know, in my brain, I'm just sort of like zonked, a little swirly, a little unclear. And so
you got
then
it.
you took the role, the hat off of having to be the teacher, the presenter, the speaker, and you just
Yeah.
let yourself be, and you listened and you absorbed. And that might have meant you didn't come back with this, here's my articulate follow-up and thing like this, and more just, I'm with you, and this was a really enjoyable moment. And we can still use this moment to talk about shame. And I feel like that right there was more symbolic of the human experience and the flow than had you followed exactly what I said and come back with another point and we just kept digging in it.
Yeah. You're talking about the children, and this, the bridge here is having authentic relationship. Doesn't mean we should do anything and hurt people and all those things, but having authentic relationship, whether it's with a child or me with you, is quite rare. Most ideas are trying to fix us to be the right kind of mother, partner, person, social media person, as opposed to, this is my real experience. Right now I'm got lost, or right now I'm upset, or right now that hurts my feelings, or right now I'm so moved by what you're saying, I can't think straight. Those, the actual experience, and then the other person has their actual experience. That makes intimacy. And intimacy needs unshaming. You have to not only get over yourself, you have to figure out how to bring yourself out. That in a way that doesn't cause damage or too much hurt. Little hurts here and there certainly can happen when people are being real. But we need more genuine relationship in the world with each other, with our children, with other communities, with nation states that are not ours. How do I develop a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
these places in the planet that are so difficult? People
Mm.
don't know how to do that very much. Our relationship skills and awareness are very low. And I think, how are we going to solve some of these deep problems without people learning to relate to each other? We can try to
Yeah.
control them. These are the bad people. These are the bad people.
Right.
So we can decide who's bad. But at some point, we have to kind of say, in my view, how are we going to get along? If we hate each other and want to kill each other, that's a really
Mm-hmm.
important relationship. We better figure something out, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of death. There already is a lot of death. We know that.
Mm.
Um,
Well, and it's interesting because even as you're taking, whether we're talking about the relationship of a parent to their child or we talk about these global relationships that we have, I think about sort of the work to be done on an individual and a collective level of getting to a place of non-defensiveness, which is really, I feel like, what you're talking about with the unshaming way, is to get to a place of curiosity and to ask the more important questions and to depersonalize a bit how we're showing up to conversations. And so I think about maybe when I am having a conversation with an individual, or when I think about these bigger collective conversations, if I'm filtering everything through a lens of it's all personal, it's all about me, either an attack on me, data about me and my shame and my stories, or something that I'm responsible to fix, one, that's a lot of pressure on me. But two, I can't get to a place of curiosity and I can't be truly intimate because I'm either coming in with expectations about who I have to be, who they have to be, or both. And that is protective, but it's not helpful and it doesn't move the story, again, on an individual or on a global level in any direction that allows vulnerability, which is where the healing can actually happen.
It's really important what you're saying. It's a deep thing and a difficult conundrum. The conundrum is, if I, as a representative of many people, haven't expressed a lot of my power, force,
Hmm.
let's call it defensiveness, if I haven't ever defended myself, then everything is going to be seen by my psyche as an opportunity to try to do that. It's in me. It's waiting to come out. So this makes it very difficult to let go of without finding spaces for me to do that or believing in that intelligence. We've seen how much in the United States and other places are polarized, the intense polarization that we have, 50
Hmm.
50. 50% of the people want this, 50% want the other thing. And then some people say we need to be less polarized. But there's an intelligence in polarization. The intelligence is both sides want to say, I have my fist up, this is me. I won't agree with you. I won't budge one more freaking inch. I'm going to speak my mind and I'm going to be aggressive and I'm not going to hold my power back and I'm going to win and I'm going to take you out if you don't agree with me.
Hmm.
I'm going to dominate. So we can't only get rid of that because we think it's not so good. It's out of control, meaning there's no holding of that desire. But then polarization happens naturally because there's so much unexpressed energy,
Hmm.
right? So all you have to do is like put your finger up to your nose and I'll see a middle finger, right? And you say,
Hmm.
David, that wasn't the middle finger. And I'm like, but I need to see a middle finger because I've been wanting to respond to that middle finger for so long. And I
Hmm.
finally got a chance. Don't cure me of my vision yet. So
Mm.
it's a difficult conundrum because people need to be seen and be believed for that energy that's coming out so something new can happen. And on the other side, if it only gets expressed in the way it is, it's going to be a form of violence to ourselves, to our children, to the world, to the earth.
Mm.
And that's not going to work so well. How do we move forward with that? Oh boy, I don't know if we do that fast enough.
Yeah.
That's my depressing thought. Nobody has to believe me on that, but I'm not sure we do that well enough. I don't think we can suppress ourselves, hold that back as a way to get there. I don't think it'll be sustainable. We would
Hmm.
try it, but I don't think it'll sustain.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I feel like, what you described is this, we're going to look for ways to be in that place of defensiveness and also to claim a sense of power if we've
Yeah.
lived feeling powerless. And I mean, all of this connecting back to likely experiencing conditional love growing up, and this idea that I have to be this version to be loved, to be good enough, to be accepted. And so our authentic and true self, or our range of emotions, were suppressed. And so now they're coming out. And whether it's I'm fighting against someone from a different political background or party, or I'm fighting with my partner because I have to win because obviously they fucked up, not me. It's my husband and I call it the you versus me brain. And it's, I can't see anything other than you as my opponent.
Right.
Instead of coming back to, when I get out of that place, when I'm able to come out of that, I can start to see like, oh, actually, in the example of my husband and I, we're always playing on the same team. That was never actually the question. I had a feeling that I didn't know how to have it feel seen and heard, or I didn't feel safe communicating it without
Yeah.
feeling like I had to dominate him, because I'm so used to somebody shutting it down that felt like it was the only way. And having to really learn that, I think for most of us, we don't feel safe or maybe empowered or supported, whatever it might be, to do it in these micro instances. So then when we're talking about these big global changes, I mean, it's a lot of dominoes that have to fall. And I think it feels negative, it feels heavy, but I also think not addressing the heaviness of it allows us to continue to kind of have sort of that, maybe we'll see kind of approach, and that laissez-faire approach without more of a willingness to be uncomfortable to do the work, is why individually and collectively we stay in a state of suffering.
Unshaming our power is such a huge task. And people say, why would I feel shame about my power? Because it looked angry, because it looks like you disturb things, because power has an impact on people, because it's not
Mhm.
only fawning, because it's not only sweet, because it's not only agreeable, because it leads. And that means other people might not want to be led, and the followers ought to push back against leaders. So embodying amount of power means that there's going to be difficulty.
Right.
All power is like that. If you have some, I'm not saying it's all abusive, but it all warrants pushback, creating difficulty, etc. So most of us learn to put that power away pretty quickly,
Mhm.
for various reasons. Maybe like the abuse stories I told, maybe because somebody fought back and they were, pathologized and told that they shouldn't fight back, and they were angry. It's a huge issue,
Mhm.
especially if a person lives in a marginalized culture, whether that's gender or sexual identity or racial. If a person has lived in an identity where you've been labeled a B
Mhm.
if you're a woman, I don't like using the word, or an N if you're black, or etc.,
Mhm.
some kind of militant. So if you're in a community itself where if you express force, resistance, power,
Mhm.
um, that it's going to be looked at in a certain way. It's going to be policed outwardly, and you're in danger, or inwardly.
Mhm.
Man, I'm just thinking about all the African Americans that I've worked with who have had the talk. The talk means
Mm.
they have to tell their children, if you ever get pulled over by the police,
Yes.
you must not, and then fill in, show any, I'm going to exaggerate it or not. You must not show any resistance. Put your
Yeah.
hand on the wheel of the car, or put your hands out where you can see. Don't talk back. Like, listen to the training of that. And I understand why they have to give that talk, because they don't want their children to die or be beaten up badly. But so that's one very specific example. Don't be a powerful, don't sit there and say, I don't agree with this. Why is this happening? No way. Don't yell, certainly. Why not yell if someone's mistreating you?
Mhm.
Don't do all those things. So that's a microcosm of a certain kind of example, but that happens to most people. We're policed not quite as obviously as the example I'm giving, where you could lose your life if you curse, say, fuck you, officer, I'm not going to listen to you. That person might put their hand on their gun, but that happens to people all the time in other ways. Some
Mm.
people get the gun is a diagnosis.
Yeah.
You're a screwed up human being. Some people, it's a gun is being silenced. Some people, the
Mhm.
gun is neglect, and
Mhm.
neglect can kill. I'm not going to pay attention to you if you don't act in a certain way.
Mhm.
So I can do that through neglect. Some people, the gun is a hand, or capital punishment. Some
Mhm.
people, the weapon is you should be afraid of me all the time and be frightened. But that's not uncommon. That's the status quo.
Yeah.
Right? We live in a world that's run by domination. We know that. I'm not trying to say that's weird. It makes sense to me. We go to war with countries and we take out, and we want to have the biggest military and bombs that we can and the biggest threat. And that's what happens. People do that personally also. So for people to have power and show it, wow.
Yeah.
Profound. Yeah.
I mean, I think about really as you're describing it, I mean, from a small scale or a large scale, it's really this idea that shame is the internalization of these systems of power and oppression. It's just the perpetuation of those systems, whether that is your family system and, whoever is the leader or the top power person in that dictates the terms of what it looks like, and you fall in line and these are the rules. It could be your relationship, it could be the work system. I think a lot about this now with sort of toxic positivity and corporate toxicity and these large companies that have gone through layoff after layoff after layoff, and their employees are in a state of traumatic vigilance and they don't know what to do, but it's like, well, you better keep doing it. And this is what it is, or else you're going to lose your job. You're not good enough. So the threat is always there. And I feel like when we live in that space, I know we're getting close on time. And so the one other thing I want to connect to this.
Take us anywhere you want.
Well, I know one of the I don't want to say the most impactful because I haven't obviously seen everything that you've done, but I think really impactful for me thus far is when you talked about, and I think it was in relation to addiction as a general concept, but I really liked how you talked about escape and the way that people use escape and we're missing part of the story. And so I'm just curious if you could connect for us, when we're talking about shame, again, in these individual relationships or on a global scale, and we've really started to get at this idea of how we believe we're supposed to be, and this idea that we have to be this way, and basically the neutralization of the human experience. And then when we talk about escape and we talk about addiction as a form of escape, and whether that's drug addiction, it could be our food, it could be codependence, even our relationship with our bodies and chronic illness, like there's overlap in all of this. And I'm curious how you would connect that idea of escape back into this and why we need to talk about that.
There are lots of words that people use which make a person's experience invisible. So self-medicating would be one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm self-medicating. We don't know what, let's say I'm self-medicating with ice cream. I don't know. That wouldn't be as bad as certain other things. Let's say I'm self-medicating with ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
If you stop at the label self-medicating, which most people do, I'm self-medicating, we don't know what I'm experiencing when I eat the ice cream. We don't think is intelligence. If we say a person's escaping, lots of people will say that around addictions, person's trying to escape. We don't know what my experience is. The main thing that we won't know with the word escape is if there's some truth to it, what am I escaping from?
Mm.
Is it an inner world where I'm being treated really badly? Is it a low self-esteem? Is it a depression? Is it a body pain? Is it trauma from having been a war vet? What am I escaping from? And then the even deeper question, where am I escaping to? People aren't just trying to leave someplace, they're trying to go someplace. And when a person uses a substance, they're always, not just some of the time, always trying to access a state of mind or consciousness or feeling that they are hungry for and need. Doesn't mean that's the way to do it, but they need that thing. Go back to the power issue. I was once working with a person who was into cocaine, and I asked them what was it like? What's it like when they were snorting the cocaine? What's it like? And they said, I feel like no one can mess with me. I feel like I'm like indomitable.
Mm-hmm.
That person never feels that way. So we have to help that person feel a little bit indomitable. I can do things and not get crushed by people, or people experience other things. I worked with a woman who drank a lot. She said, I would leave the house, go to a bar, and I would sit there and drink. What was it like drinking at that bar? She said, every time I walked into that bar, people were like, hey, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. And we're doing this social thing. And I'm lonely and I don't know how to talk to people, but I have a few drinks and I go out and everyone wants to talk to me. It was a woman who had a rather large body. So she looked at herself and thought she was not attractive. In the world, she thought, I'm not attractive. She walks around thinking, I'm not a pretty, attractive human being.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes someplace where people go, hey, welcome, great, let's have a nice time together.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, that's a huge thing. I want to know she's looking for that.
Yeah.
So people are doing all kinds of substances and they're trying to access something. They're leaving something, a state of mind. Maybe a person is accessing their anger. Maybe a person's accessing their vulnerability. I drink and I want to tell you my sad stories. That person then needs help getting in touch with the sadness that lives in them and sharing it intimately with people. That's what they're using the substance for. The substance is I'm going to say it like this, is an ally. Not the best one because it's damaging.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the throwing up is damaging. But they're finding something that says, this thing can help me do something. And my question is, what is it helping you do?
Mm-hmm.
And self-medicating doesn't help. Escaping doesn't help. It leaves out all the information that we can really get if we inquire. What's it like when you do that substance? And you mentioned codependence. Codependence is an addiction. It's an addiction. All addictions have a need, a valid need in them that I'm reaching for, but not exactly getting successfully through the action or the substance. That's what an addiction is. It's a deep need. It's a valid need. It's an important need. That means I can't let go of it very easily
Mm-hmm.
and shouldn't. That I don't know how to get met, but I can get a little taste of it met through some substance or behavior. Codependence, the need is for a feeling in relationship to a person.
Mm-hmm.
My addiction is I'm going to treat you in a certain way because I need something from you.
Mm-hmm.
So the big question for me is, what's the need? And if I work with a person who says they're codependent, I always say, if you, through all that behavior, could get, let's say it's with a partner, could get your partner to do something, ideally, your codependence worked. You put yourself away, you were nice, you never called them on anything, you didn't have a single need of your own. You put yourself totally away. What would the ideal impact be from that person? That's a deep question.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel, many people will say, I'm going to feel safe. That person needs to feel safe. Some person would say, I would feel unconditionally loved. Some people would say a person would stop violating me and beating me up.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say all kinds of different things. Whatever that need is, that needs to be captured. That's what the addiction is trying to get me to. Then the question with the codependent situation is, can that person ever give that to you? Now I know I need safety, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to look very clearly. Look at that person that you're trying to get that from. Can they ever deliver it? The need is valid. Don't try to get over that
Right.
need. Don't think you're screwed up for having that need. Don't think you're stupid because you should make your needs go away. Your needs are fine. Now, can that person deliver? Look at them clearly. You need clear eyes. You need to be sober, literally. Sober
Mm-hmm.
eyes. Sober eyes meaning I'm not imagining you can be that way. I have to look at you clearly. Can that person do it? And if the person says, honestly, I don't think so, to say the need's valid, you can't get it met there. If the person says, I'm not sure, maybe, then I have to say to that person, try a little bit more. Because they're going to do it anyway. But now let's talk about how you get that need met. Bring that need out more, bring it out
Mm-hmm.
more directly. That's the end of the codependence anyway, is having the clear need. And see, you're not done yet. But isn't it bad? I would love to get you to change that relationship. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
could. But I have my experiences, people can't just be told not to do something. Now, if you're in physical danger for your life, we have to take more drastic actions. I once worked with a woman, she came to see me and she said, I need help with a decision. What's the decision? She said, I'm thinking of moving and marrying this man, and everybody in my family and my friends and this teacher I have and I hold in dear regard says I should not do it. So I think, okay, so she has all these voices. They're probably smart. They probably see things about her. Like, are these people jerks? Some of them are. They're really smart people. Okay, so it's not just an inner critic. There's something valid there. And I said, if you came to a few sessions with me and I said, my conclusion is don't move and don't marry this guy, would you still do it? And she said, probably. I thought she was going to do it no matter what I say, because all the people are telling her things. So what is she coming for? I could give her the advice, which would be, to me would be shaming. It's not bad advice, but it's not going to help her.
Mm-hmm.
I said, given that you would probably do it anyway, let me give you my advice. Move and marry the guy. She says, really? I said, and when you have difficulties, and if you have difficulties, come back and I'll help you get out. People are like, that's stupid. That's wrong. I'm like, I wasn't going to stop her. You see, let's look at the reality. I was not going to stop her. No one was going to stop her. And a year and a half later, she called me up to help me get out of my relationship. I said, great. Why don't you talk to your friends and your teacher? I'm not going to tell them. They're going to all tell me I was an idiot to begin with. She said, you're the only one who doesn't think I made a bad decision. And you know what? I didn't. I thought she made the decision that she had to make for the next step of her life. I have no reason to doubt her. I can't change her. I can't tell the person, don't drink alcohol anymore. I've had work with people who are doing drugs and alcohol, telling them it ain't going to do very much. I have to hold them through a process. And in the process, there has to be something like, I believe something in you. Yeah. I believe in the codependent action. I don't want you to live that way, but I believe you have a genuine hunger for the cocaine, for the heroin, for the alcohol, for the codependent actions in relationship. And it's missing. No one's being, it gets me so upset. I've worked with so many people with addictive tendencies who've never been asked, what's it like to put that cigarette in your mouth? Yeah. I've been smoking 2 packs a day for 40 years and I'm trying to stop smoking. I've done everything. The person said to me, what's it like to put the cigarette in my mouth? I don't know. I have a bunch of ideas. Take a pen, make believe it's a cigarette because I don't want you to smoke a cigarette. Yeah. And make believe you're smoking that and tell me what happens for you. No one's ever asked me. What?
I think what you're getting at, it's such a beautiful place because I'm thinking about, okay, if we could, every episode that I record, my goal is that I don't want people to leave and be like, what a nice, tidy package. And here's all I need to do. And then whatever the topic is that we're talking about, like, this is it. Yeah. This is the solution because it's not what life is like. And I really think with different approaches and ways, the alignment between the two of us is really empowering that state of curiosity and sort of the process of being in your life and allowing it to ebb and to flow and to find that neutrality within it. And so I'm thinking a lot about what you just said, and my brain's doing the same thing. I have stories, I have ideas. A big thing I thought about is in every example you were giving with the addiction, with the codependency, with that person who you told her to do what she wanted. It's this idea for many people of wanting to feel, I mean, you gave her unconditional support. Your regard for her, your support wasn't based on her listening to you. It was, I'm not you, do what you want, and I'll be here for you either way. And I feel like when I got really clear on where my codependence was rooted to, a lot of it was the idea of I wanted to be chosen. And if I did enough for other people, they would choose me because they'd have to, because they needed me. But in reality, it's wanting to believe that I was worth being chosen.
That's beautiful.
And I feel like for a lot of us, it is really getting clear. And I can say it now from a place where I still have an emotion with it. But it was very raw. Actually, it was very unraw because I was so emotionally and body detached for a long time. And then it was very raw as I connected back to my body. And now it feels a little bit more neutral. But I'm thinking about all these people that have listened to this. And I feel like we have really achieved my goal, which is, I call it their brain pond. I want us to come in and muck it up. I want to kick up all the puddles and I want things to be moving. And the idea being really empowering that curiosity. And so as you think about all the places we've kind of gone today, or just in your work in general, if you were going to give people one idea, one invitation, one thought, something that they could do next in their mucked upness of their brain, in that maybe curious state we're trying to cultivate, is there something you might suggest to them they could start with as they really try to work towards that unshaming, towards that process?
The question that I would ask people to keep around is, what if the thing that's bothering me about myself is intelligent in some way, like nature? What if whatever I'm going through, I'm not saying you should do it more or you should give yourself away or take drugs or be depressed, but what if in that thing that you were trying to get rid of, there was some kind of deep intelligence from your story, from your traumas, and a representative of the kind of person you are? Because one person's dramatic and one person's quiet. So I'm interested in all of that. What if there's an intelligence lives in you? What if it's not something wrong with you, but something wants to be expressed? And this is the only way, the best way so far that the expression has happened. That's a question. And this is not something that you have to answer, but when you were talking about being chosen, the next step I would offer to you, I would say, what's it like to be chosen? What's it feel? Let's imagine you are totally chosen. Just for a minute, tomorrow you can think different. But if you're totally chosen, you've reached it. It's happened for at least a few minutes so you can feel it. What's it like? And then if I were to go further, I'd say, what's it like in your body? What's the sound that your voice makes when you're chosen? What's the dance that you would do if you were chosen? What does it look like? I'm saying sound, feelings in the body, and dance, because those are somatic expressions. If we ask people the ideas, we'll get ideas. What's the chosen dance look like? What's the sound? Is it like, oh? Is it like, oh, this is the best experience? Is it like, yes? What is this thing? That's because it lives in you. And we're not asking that question. And if you are chosen, what's it like? Because that belongs to you. That you can't always access it, but I guarantee 100% that feeling that you would access lives inside of you. You don't need to get it somewhere else. You need access route to it. That's not easy because maybe it was unchosen for 3 generations. I'm serious. And you can't just kind of say, I'll just choose myself today. Some stories have generations to heal. So a lot of unchoosing may take a while, but the state lives in you. The state of, I feel what it's like. I know the dance, the sound, the way I talk to people, the tone of my voice, the look in my eyes, the color of my face, the songs that I would sing. When you know that, you will make a link to that place, like you're making a highway, a neural connection to this experience that's been shamed, put away for a long time and not been witnessed, that it's been put away. And it belongs to you. Somebody else, something else belongs to them. But for you, that feeling of being chosen lives in you. And then if you had it, what would you do different in your life? Would you write a book? Would you not care what people think? Would you become a poet? You know what I'm saying? But because now who are you? That's a really important question. Yes, I'd be over the difficulty of feeling unchosen and unworthy. But then the beauty is, then I would do this. Then I would get on the steps of the White House and then I'd become a senator. I don't know what you would do. This is the big question though. Who are you really when you become you? Because when the shame goes away, you don't just get relief from the addiction, from the depression, from the not feeling chosen. You get to be you, and the path that's yours, and the gift that's yours, and the love that's yours, and the way you love, and the way you care, and what you're meant to give to the world, and how you feel about yourself, that belongs to the flowering of you. Yeah. There's a lot more than getting over symptoms.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this was such a beautiful place to sort of, I guess, maybe put an ellipses, because I mean, when you ask the question, other people couldn't see it, but as you were asking those questions, I know they were for me, but they were also for the greater listenership. And immediately tears came out of my
I saw
eyes.
your eyes color change. Yeah.
And I want to sit with it more because I think sometimes because I'm really good at communicating, I can out communicate myself from a deeper feeling. And so I'm going to sit with it more besides this. But the first thing that came up when you described it was like, as soon as you said, what would the dance be? I'd be like, I wouldn't be dancing. I would be still.
Wow.
I wouldn't have to move. And so I really want to sit with that more because I think there is something in that I haven't tapped into yet. And I think because the follow-up question of how would things be different? I could do that all day because that one's not as feelings based to me, but
Yes.
I want to be in that first one more. And so I just want to share that because listeners, if you're hearing some of these questions, whether it's for you being chosen or if it's something else, it's noticing what came up, but then being willing to sit and allow the layers to come
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
I think today I could hear it without resistance because I think that I've done enough work that even a year ago, my initial reaction to your question would have been a resistance layer. I wouldn't have even been able to hear it. I wouldn't have been able to entertain it. I would have been like, this is stupid because that's my go-to. That's my intellectualization as a form of avoidance of the body. And I'm really good at that. Having done a lot of that work, I can go now, oh, this is vulnerability and I'm going to hear it and I'm going to receive it. And so
Beautiful.
I'm so grateful for your time today. This has been, just the best conversation. I am
Thank you.
so,
I'm really touched.
so grateful.
Speaking of eyes, can you see how red my eyes are? They're like,
You don't look sick at all, minus the 2 times I think you've blown your nose. But
it's
maybe,
not fair. It's not fair. I want to look sick.
I need my outside to match my inside. I need everyone to know. Yes. But I really sincerely, listeners, hope that you can allow yourself to come back to this episode. I think it's one that I definitely am going to bookmark for myself because there's these really, I think about them as like micro invitations that, again, had that question been asked to me a year ago, I would have had a very different response than what I could have had now. And in 6 months or a year from now, I might have a different response. And so
Yeah.
one thing I do want to make sure people know about before we wrap up is you have a book and you also have all sorts of other resources, but your book, people need to get their hands on it. I am only part of the way through and I'm like, where was this when I was getting my degree and when I started therapy? And so can you let people know a little bit about your book and where they can get it?
It's my 4th book. It's called The Unshaming Way. And it's a full psychology of unshaming, from abuse and trauma to addictions and feelings to boundaries to physical illness, with examples of me working with people. I always make sure I model in the book. About 2 months ago, endorsed by Gabor Mate. I was proud of that. That's my brag, as it were. I'm proud of that. And published by North Atlantic Books. I'm really also proud of that publisher. I gave up a offer that was 3 times as much money because North Atlantic Books, I think they have a very high integrity, and I wanted to be part of their catalog of authors. I suffered a bunch because I wanted to take the money, but I'm proud of that. So people can find The Unshaming Way. Amazon, of course, is not everyone loves Amazon, which I understand, but it's the 50% of the books that people buy are from that damn place.
From there, yeah.
So you can get it anywhere the books are sold. Lots of libraries will have it or can order it. Any bookstore can either has it or can get it. Barnes and Nobles or your local bookstore. Amazon is just the biggest purveyor of books. There's no way out.
Yes.
If you want to sell
We're
a book,
deep in it. Yeah.
If you want to have a book that people read, you can just market it online or something like that. But if you're going to get published, all publishers are going to go with Amazon.
And I just made this connection. It's really interesting. When I started college, I read In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts and by Gabor Mate. And that was what made me start to cultivate curiosity for my mom's experience with addiction and trauma, and sort of ignited my curiosity in the field and potentially, and I didn't make the decision to work in this field until like 8 years later, but it sparked something. And so it's interesting because I remember in the stories that he shares, feeling held. And the stories didn't even necessarily, I wasn't relating to the people necessarily, but I felt held. And there's a very similar safety and holding that you put in your book. So I'm just now sort of making that connection as to why I think I had such a reaction to you and the way that you communicate in your book as well. You know, in your case, we've sort of marked it through the unshaming, but I think both of you, it's this really beautiful capacity to bring neutrality and curiosity to something that's often so negatively judged or pathologized, and then with here's the fix. And so just something I want you to hear, because I think I didn't realize that that's might be why I'm connecting so much to it. And for listeners to know that that's something that I think is rare. And often people that are writing any sort of psychology, mental health, wellness, addiction book, there is sometimes a missing gap where either it's falsely selling an answer, which sort of perpetuates that pathologization, if that's a word,
Yeah.
pathologizing,
Yeah.
as opposed to cultivating curiosity and an awareness of the self and an awareness of the global experience. And that's really something I think you do really well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Mhm.
honored. I'm honored.
Well, listeners, I'm going to have links to David's book, to his website, everything down in the show notes. So please make sure that you get your hands on that book. Let me know what you think. If you have a favorite part in the show notes, you'll be able to tell us if anything else came up for you. There's a comment section. So please tell us if you had an aha, an insight, a question that you're like, I hate it and I love it all at once, and I want to come back and sit with it. Just let us know. And as always, I will see you back here next Sunday.